as a footballer, how did that love of the game morph into a career? Well, behind the camera anyway, because it's quite interesting, isn't it? It's quite unusual.
Yeah, definitely unusual. I mean, I'll start off by saying I was never a very good footballer. So I'm not someone who kind of was like the star in the team and had all these amazing ideas on the pitch. I've always been a very average, in fact, probably below average footballer. And I became obsessed with the stories through meeting people who loved it more than I did at the time. Because I wasn't very good at it, I always had this relationship where I wasn't like super fascinated. And then as I started to meet more and more mates who were into the game and understanding their upbringing, their culture, why they go to every game, whether they won or lost, I then started becoming more in love with it. And at the time, I just went to university. I moved in with someone who supported Wolverhampton Wanderers, and they're such an up and down club. Like they have amazing results and such poor results. And coming from Ireland, where everyone kind of only supports the strongest teams, it was having someone who was I could see was a diehard fan, whether they were winning every game or losing every game. Like he was there every single week, traveling across the country. I then understood like what it meant to be a true football fan, and I became hooked on the stories behind it.
That's the most. It's really the most exciting part in a way. That's the whole. It's the energy, isn't it? It's that connection. Okay, so the second question was sort of what was a single moment when you thought I want to tell stories, not just to play them. I'm guessing you've sort of already mentioned that with being, in terms of the competitiveness of footballing, and then realizing you weren't necessarily there.
That's right, yeah. But I think it all came to understanding I could tell the stories in that I noticed that a lot of clubs were like, back sort of in the early 2010s, clubs weren't doing many stories as they are now. And I had just moved to London. I had joined like an LGBT inclusive football team. And when I went into that, I sort of thought to myself, like, oh, these players won't be up to standard. I'm not going to meet anybody who can play because that representation isn't in the game. There's no one in the top flight of English football that's out. And I sort of went into that with a really narrow mind and meeting players who were openly queer and were absolutely ballers opened my mind into like, I would never know this happened if I was still in Ireland. I would never know that these people exist. And that was when I told my first football story with Coppa 90, which was on an openly gay football player. And since then, I became hooked on the idea of finding stories that people like in everyday life exist. These people are here, they're visible, but if you don't have the access or these stories aren't told, you won't know about them otherwise.
That's great. Okay, so career journey. You've gone from Copper 90 docs to Premier League promos to viral YouTube content. How do you adapt your style across different worlds? So you've gone from Copper 19 docs, Premier League promos to viral YouTube content. How do you adapt your style across such different worlds?
So it's so fascinating because I grew up in that era that like grew up when YouTube was blowing up. So I was
Yeah.
like always watching it, always binging it. And the same with TikTok, like TikTok obviously was made and I was straight onto it. But I've been a film fan growing up my whole life. So I've always been attracted to like high-end production. And because I was obviously obsessed with the idea of being on larger sets and making high quality content, but then also growing up observing and watching how people can make the most interesting videos with just a phone or just a webcam, I have just naturally like merged those two worlds because I've always aspired to make high-end pieces and bigger pieces and things that like you look at visually, they're attractive, they're the storytelling is there and it's beats. But then also I've grown up like understanding what I enjoy watching online and how it like can be snappy and still tell a story. So I think it like naturally has weirdly happened. I've like merged those two worlds of wanting to aspire to high end production value and also just what works and just putting them together. So in a weird way, that's just how it happened.
It's the best way, isn't it? Because you know better than others because you've grown up with it.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah, super
good.
true.
Working with Neco or Milana and the Beta Squad teach you about reaching massive audiences online.
Yeah, I mean, like they know their audiences inside and out. They're just such good people, and I think that's ultimately what works. Is that had worked a bit with online, with people who do online content a lot in the past, and I think a lot of them were putting on an act and maybe didn't have the correct morals behind camera. But working with them, I understood that they have great morals and want the best for their audiences. So when they're writing their content or coming up with their ideas with their team, they'll always think like, will our fans want to see this? And then what I loved about working with Neco is that he's such a great person. Like every time he does a documentary, he actually has a goal in mind. He wants to figure something out. He wants to reveal something or discover something. He's such an inquisitive person and wants to learn about people. Like even just as someone who worked alongside him, I always felt like Neco was trying to learn more about me. And he's such a talented person at digging up those stories. So I think having him as someone who actually has good morals and wants to do something good on his platform, it taught me so much rather than, okay, let's turn the camera on. Okay, guys, say these lines, right? Go home now, do whatever you want. Like he lived and breathed everything about his platform, and so did all the guys. So they wanted just the best for it. And I think having that and seeing their love and desire for actually just making amazing pieces and helping the world ultimately, Neco's done content that people watch because they're like, no one else does this. And whether it's like on touchy subjects or whether it's on places in the world that no one else goes to, he wants to do that, and that's really admirable.
Different is the pressure you're delivering for Premier League compared to creators like Will and E?
Yeah, I mean, so both are obviously for millions of eyeballs around the world, but I guess very different in some ways. One is a very traditional broadcast platform, and one is you're almost like having fun, making the process in the minds of it's a bit more relaxed, and you're kind of just thinking, right, we don't need to obey traditions. We can kind of go off the template if we want. Whereas with the Premier League, of course, you're checking every single detail. You're making sure it can be viewed by different audiences around the world. It's safe to do so. So there was more strict measurements with Premier League, which you had to be more, locked in for. Of course, you had to make sure like everything was pristine, perfect. With YouTube, I sort of think that like those imperfections are what make content enjoyable and like what make it feel real, because if YouTube went through that same process as the Premier League, suddenly it kind of feels artificial. It doesn't feel as real. But likewise, if Premier League went through what YouTube did, then it's unprofessional. It's not done correctly. It's unsafe for people all over the world. So it's that sort of world of making sure both never like uh, still feel authentic and still are done the right way. So both very different processes, but also for the same millions of people around the world at the same time. Both were high pressure, I'll be honest, especially like with YouTube. When you upload, the comments are there straight away, so you can kind of get a feel as to what people thought about it straight away, like whether they didn't like something about it or whether they loved something about it. And that was something that was always interesting. You have instant feedback, whereas with Premier League, you put something up, it's shown all around the world, mainly on like TV, and you sort of are always wondering like, wow, all these people have seen it. What do they think? It's mad.
Yeah, what makes a story great in your eyes?
So for me, my favorite stories are ones that from normal everyday people. I think that those sort of stories that maybe you bypass somebody on the street or you meet the same person every day, or this person's in an environment and you already know it exists, but you don't know a certain detail or you don't know how they got to there, is what fascinates me the most. Because I really like when you sort of have a expectation of somebody, or you think you already know all there is to know about a topic, and you're sort of then hit with this brand new information which you didn't know. I really like those stories as well, because I feel like with the stories I like to tell, I like putting people in environments they feel comfortable already, and they sort of feel like that they already know all there is about one topic, and then to suddenly hit them with, oh, you didn't know this whole thing existed. They're my favorite. And I think especially in sport, people like to think that they know all there is to know about it, and they're the biggest nerds, and they know every single detail and who's the best player at every time, but they never know how those players got there, maybe what they had to go through. And so much of footballers' lives and sports stars' lives are completely off camera, and you have no idea what they've gone through to get there. So unearthing those and being able to shine light on them is what literally drives me.
So has storytelling changed for football, for TikTok and you since because of TikTok and YouTube?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's only a good thing. Like it used to just be that exclusive documentaries were done with players. You would have such small like access, whereas now clubs and brands all over the world are understanding the benefit of being able to tap into online space because it's simple. All you need is a phone. You can do them quickly, and even if you do them to a higher budget, you can do them, and make them choppy, make them fast, and they'll get seen more. Because so many stories, like when they're done and they spend a lot of time digging in, they often won't even get the viewership that maybe it deserves. Whereas so now, if you make a story that's interesting, half interesting, at Premier League, we did it all the time. We would actually make it for social straight away. It's everywhere. Everyone knows about it. So it's only a good thing because stories are getting out there way more.
Projects you're proudest of so far, and why?
Question for you. Do you want me to say an ad? Because my favorite project is the narrative, but I can say my favorite ad.
I mean, maybe a bit of both.
Yeah,
Of
course. So my favorite project off the top of my head is Reavey Brothers, the short film I made on my uncles. It's a true story. We made it during COVID. We overcame so many barriers, and that project was meant to be like this size, with no expectation of how much it would like blow up essentially in the Northern Ireland space. And that has fascinated me. And I'll never believe how that went when we were these like young filmmakers who sort of were like, right, let's put in £100 each and film something in Liverpool. It went from that to flying everyone to Ireland. We all stayed in these like my house, my friends' houses, my family's houses, and being able to get a cast I could only ever dream of. So that was definitely my favorite narrative piece. The favorite advert I've made is my most recent one. It's Skechers How's Your Touch. I loved making that project from start to finish. They involved me really early, which was class. And it was with an agency called Rising Ballers, who I love. They're so tapped into like the Gen Z market. And it was so exciting to like work on a piece that was like, right, okay, like let's get these players and put them in like mad situations. They were so up for putting them wherever we felt was going to be best for the narrative. And as well, I got to travel all over Europe, which is definitely not a bad thing. So I'm very lucky that that went as amazing as it could. And I'm so proud of the end project. The team absolutely smashed it.
How do you see the line between sport, entertainment, and internet culture evolving? This is a great question because you are in it at the moment. You know exactly what you're talking about. So I'm really interested.
I'm glad you asked. So I can see it. I can see it continuing to move closer. Basically, because cameras are getting better and everything has been easier to access, whether that's kit or the access to the internet world, access to views, access to people, access to people's home screens, everything is shifting to be easier to create. And whether that's, people who have 0 followers can now get to working with these absolutely massive brands in no time now, compared to it used to be like, oh, you're on step 1, you've got a massive ladder to climb, like how are you even going to tackle that? And it's only a good thing. Like I sort of said, like there's people who have amazing ideas, maybe have never had the resources or the access to create that. They can now get that. All it takes is a Google search and suddenly they know how to even start. And it's insane being able to see how people's careers accelerate in the space of a year, half a year. Genuinely mind-blowing. And it's exciting because the worlds are just getting closer together. It used to be that everything was so split up. Like if you did YouTube, you would never be exposed to broadcast, you would never be exposed to film. Now it's like they just keep getting closer and closer. And I do think it'll only be a certain amount of time before like they completely merge. It's so fascinating.
What advice would you give to young filmmakers wanting to break into the industry, and specifically or your area of sport, for example?
Yeah, I think especially now, like we just mentioned, the top tip is just get creating. Like it's never been easier to literally just start making things. But another thing I would say as well is like figure out what you actually enjoy watching and creating, because I think that was sort of the thing for me as well for a long time. Like I knew what I loved watching and knew what I kind of like aspired to create, but maybe it takes a bit of time to figure out exactly what it is you want to tell. And I think a lot of people can kind of ask themselves the question, like, okay, what is it that you can only tell? Like, is it your area, your background, your friends' stories? Like, what is it that you haven't seen that you can do? And rather than trying to just kind of copy what's there at the moment, that's such an easy way to obviously break in. But I think you're actually more original content is the way to go, and just trying to get your brain to understand that, like, you as a person can do things that no one else in the world can do. Like, what can you do? And let's make that a thing, because that's what people want to see.
Favorite footballer growing up?
So I want to shout out Aaron Lennon. I grew up weirdly obsessed with Aaron Lennon, loved his play style, but he isn't my favorite footballer growing up. He's just someone I always think about. Has to be Cristiano Ronaldo.
Okay, fine. Cristiano Ronaldo. Okay, second question. Okay, dream club to direct a campaign for.
Dream club to direct a campaign for.
Yeah.
To visit Napoli, and I remember being just starstruck with how the city was, the graffiti everywhere. I'm going to say Napoli.
Yeah, your biggest pinch me moment so far.
It actually happened a few weeks ago. I was
Good.
lucky enough to shoot with Jude Bellingham over in Madrid, and
Wow.
working with, the most exciting English player, this young captain material in a different country, in who now plays for one of the biggest teams in the world, was a bit of a pinch me moment. I'm not a Birmingham City supporter or anything, but as I said, I'm a fan of stories, and seeing his to now being able to go and link up with him in Madrid was something else.
Amazing. Okay. A viral hit you wish you'd made.
It was Ryan Trahan just finished a tour across America where he stayed in the most insane Airbnbs, and the whole time he did it, he raised, I think it was like $10 million for charity, maybe even more. Like, he made an unbelievable amount of money for charity, and I just think that idea was insane. He had such a good cause, such a good purpose, such an entertaining video. He got to stay in the sickest places. He got to travel the country with his girlfriend. He smashed it.
Piece of kit you can't live without.
I would actually say Notion. It's a app on my desktop. It has my calendar, has all my notes, all my ideas. Everything lives in Notion. I think I'd be lost without it. I'd say that if it has to be physical, I'd say I like a disposable camera. I usually have one carried on me, and I love snapping moments that just otherwise we wouldn't capture on our phones. And I think, like, having that development feel is just, you can't beat it, man.
It's nice, isn't it? Yeah, that's the worst idea a client ever pitched you, and did you actually have to make it? So what's the worst idea a client ever pitched you, and did you actually have to make it?
I've got a few pretty rough kit launch ideas come through to me before. Obviously, very fortunate. I'm always very lucky and happy that I get asked to do these things. But I wasn't a fan of the idea. One did go ahead and exists, and I'm happy I wasn't a part of that one, because I don't think it was as strong as it could have been. And one was never made. So good thing it never saw the light of day, because I don't think the fans would have loved it. I always think when I get ideas in that I don't think are good, I always just try and read it from a fan's perspective. Like, if I'm a fan of this club, will I want to see that? And that's the way I try to go with every job. And you're smashing it, man. You're smashing it. I appreciate you.
No worries. And I appreciate you. You take it easy. I'll see you later.
See you,
Take
man.
it easy, man. Bye-bye.